The Strengthening Communities podcast is brought to you by Access Services. Join us as we talk with Rob Reid, our former president and CEO.
Well, today we have Rob Reid as our guest, and this year is our 50th anniversary here at Access, and we're recognizing that, remembering that, and each month we're going to talk about just remembering something that we've been doing over the years and the impact that has had in the community. So our overarching thread or theme for the whole podcast series is strengthening communities. So how can we as an organization strengthen the communities that we're providing services in, the communities that we each live in and that we're neighbors with people in. And so this year we're really focusing on the services that we've provided over the years and the impact that has had. So we decided to go back to the very beginning, or almost to the very beginning, and have the old guy himself with us today. So thanks for being here, Rob.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. And we pulled you out of the mothballs. We got you out of the retirement over there a little bit to come.
Yeah, if I stumble over my words, it's because I probably haven't talked in a while.
Okay. Out there in the woods hunting, fishing.
Yeah.
So one of the things, Rob, you and I were talking about this, and we were talking about how just how over the years, really the thing that we've stayed true to as an organization, as an agency, has been our original mission, and that being that people just should be able to live in the community. We want people to live their full lives in the community just like everybody else. And so that initial work that we did around opening up group homes and bringing people out of the institutions like Pennhurst was really the beginning way in which we do that. But you want to just talk a little bit about sort of those early days and how you saw the mission unfolding. You were there at the very beginning, and just sort of what that was about.
Exactly. What I've realized over the years is that how you think about what you're doing and how you're impacting and supporting people, changes over time. It does change. The most important things don't change, but a lot around it changes. Sometimes your mission statement changes, and that changes your focus. Philosophies, the support models, they're all evolving. They evolve over time as you learn, as you grow. And the background of Access Services is that they were incorporated in 1976. It kind of came out of a workshop where a bunch of social workers got together, and the objective of the workshop was to create a nonprofit. And so they did all this basic work as really just as an exercise, and then they started meeting together as a board. So they developed a founding board, and they started working, but they were looking for gaps in services in the community. And what happened along with that was that in 1977, this Halderman versus Pennhurst State School and Center case comes to court. And Judge Broderick, he says, you know what? At that time, if you had a developmental disability, you were put in an institution almost to the person. I mean, I know people that the family, but you were very much encouraged if somebody had a developmental disability, put them in an institution. So that's kind of how things were done. And that's what the doctors would tell you. And so we had these institutions all over Pennsylvania at the time. But Judge Broderick says, you know what? You can't segregate people just because of a disability. You have to give them, like they called it, the least restrictive environment. You have to give them opportunities to live in the community if they can do that. And so these institutions were overcrowded. The conditions weren't good. It was, and even by the time I got in there, I saw some things I'll never forget, going into these institutions. I know you have too, Mark. But what happened as a result of that is this new community movement started. So the board of Access says, look, there's this big gap in services. All these people that are institutionalized need a place to live in the community. That's what we'll do. So they kind of jump into that. And at the time, most organizations had programs, and you fit into the program. And if they were doing admissions or whatever, they say, well, this is our program. This is when you eat. This is when you go for recreation. This is everything was kind of defined. It was a program. And, so Access Services is born in this environment, right? So we were developmental, disability oriented as an organization. There was a big focus on habilitation. So, and the developmental model. So what you would do is you would do these assessments of what a average functioning person would be like, and then you would find these gaps. And then when you worked with people, it was all about how do we get them up to this average functioning level. And so it was kind of like that was the mindset in the early days. We started to move the focus from what kind of disability people had, because the people we were working with, first of all, they had a variety of physical disabilities. They had mental health issues that were, a wide variety of mental health issues. They had intellectual disabilities. They had emotional needs, things that we were trying to work with anyway. And but our focus started being away from the disability to what does this person need to live successfully in the community? What supports do they need? How do we bring that to them? How do we provide that for them? And this concept of person-centeredness started coming up during that time. It's something that was always there in social work, but in this particular field, this term person-centered. So it's just like, let's look at the person. Let's not program everybody to do the same exact thing. Let's look at this person. What do they need? And what do they need to live successfully in the community? And this was a cutting edge idea, was like, what are their personal goals? And how can we help them meet their personal goals? And how about the people that care about them around them? What would they like to see for this person? And so we started considering a lot of that.
It's sort of like in the very beginning, you were describing there's this legal thing that happened and said, no, you have to move people into the community. And the gap was people weren't moving into the community, and lots of the people that Access decided to serve were the folks that were still left in the institution because of the level of disability that they had, or the challenges that there might be in helping a person with those needs live in the community. And so it's sort of like we thought, well, if we just move people in the community, it'll be good. That'll be it. We just have to help people be physically in the community. And then we realized, wow, now we have people and we've gotten to know them. We know who they are. And now we have to focus on them as people and say, what do they need to be here? We've got them here. We've moved them into a home in a neighborhood. And now we have them. But it isn't going to just happen on its own. We have to sort of continue to lead the community in responding to folks and helping them be included in the community. Mike, you're a generation several down the road, but you have been somebody who started with just doing work with people. And I know you, and I know that a lot of your work was helping people find their space or find a way that they can be part of the community. And then with the TIP program that you have you helped start and lead, that's another gap in service. And I'm wondering if you could reflect on just how has that service really helped people understand themselves different, helping people find themselves in the community through what Rob's describing as a person-centered approach to people.
When I started my work in the field, I think I was a little naive because I thought, well, this is the way. If this is the way you deliver really good support and care for people, everybody must be doing it this way. And then you get involved with people and you get a view of the landscape and you say, well, unfortunately, this isn't what happens across the board. And at least I felt individually compelled to get to know people because you can't help them in their context without knowing, like Rob said, what their own goals and dreams and aspirations are. What are things that, rather than, like Rob said, put you into a program, I would like to get people and bring the program around them. And TIP allowed us a space to do that here. And the impact that it's made to ask people what they want as their own vision of a successful future. I think that's provided people with a sense of self-determination, which has been our primary goal as a program. We say, what do we want somebody to gain when they leave the program, which is a really big question, right? Because we work with young people that have a variety of different goals. But our primary objective is self-determination. I want people leaving the program with a sense of control over outcomes and to feel like they're in the driver's seat of a life moving in a direction that they choose. And that's different for every person we serve, as it should be. But that's been a lot of the mission of the work here that I've been very fortunate to be a part of.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. And I think it's a great tribute, I think, to what you were saying early on, Rob, which things change and evolve and grow. The services look different over time. The ways that we go about that change over time in that evolution. But the heart of it, there's things that abide, and the things that have abided, I think, through the entire trajectory of our organization is that we want people to do well in the life that they want to have, in the place in the community that they want to have, where they want to be. And we just believe that everybody should have an opportunity to live well in the community. And so Mike's describing that several generations and several different kinds of services later. I'm also thinking, Rob, when we were talking about the sort of the group homes at first, which was really radical. We were in the community in front of people. And we believed that people should have an opportunity to live in the community, but not the entire community didn't really agree with that, not all of them, and they weren't sure how it was going to work. And so a lot of that early work was not only supporting the people that we were serving in the group homes, but it was really how do you be a good neighbor? How do you put a good foot forward on behalf of these folks to the neighborhood so that people would accept them into the community?
Yeah, there was a lot of pushback on this whole concept of moving people out of institutions. People were afraid or whatever, and obviously there was nothing to be afraid of at the time. But even in terms of townships, in terms of opening a home, we were going to hearings of zoning hearings, and they didn't want you in there, and we'd pull out the Fair Housing Act, and we had to pave the way for this community movement. There was no supports out in the community. It's hard to imagine, but there was nothing there. And so we were creating this, what do these supports look like? How do we engage, what the needs are for the people we're working with, and how do we help them to kind of engage and be integrated into the community and be part of it, really. Because you could easily be an island in the middle of a community and be cut off from everything. And I had seen that happening. And so we really had to work hard to make it different.
Yeah. In an upcoming another episode next month, we're going to have Don and Terry Bredimus join us, and they were house parents in the first group home that I worked in, and we were just reminiscing the other day. We were talking about this upcoming podcast with them, and we were just talking about how young we were. And so she was my first supervisor, and she was 25. and I was 20. And so the thing I didn't think of it at the time, but we were all just really young people, and we were doing this thing that was new nationally. Like it was a brand new thing that was happening, and so there wasn't really. You used the word paving the road a little bit. There was no template to work off of. In the first couple years, there weren't even regulations. We were just out there in the community doing the best that we could to help people live well in the neighborhood and help the neighbors feel okay about that and get engaged with us. And so I'm just struck by the thing that we had to work with was just our commitment to the fact that the folks that we were working with needed to be there. They were in the right place. This is where they belonged in the community. And we were sort of making it up as we went in terms of exactly how to do that.
Right.
And that's changed so much now, but the importance of that, just that simple commitment to people belong in the community, and we need to help them do that, was really what focused us and drove us.
Well, it opened doors, really,
Yeah.
because it was like when you de-emphasize the disability, now you have to have expertise. You got to understand the disability and how it impacts people and what barriers people have to overcome and so on and so forth. But when you de-emphasize the disability and emphasize what does this person need, then I remember we had a much more focus on assessment and identifying what these needs were, and it opened the door because then it didn't really matter what the diagnosis was or what people labeled them as. We could just engage them, and then we could kind of develop a support plan for them and then work with them. And so we started to think more broadly than developmental disabilities. We started thinking in terms of mental health, children's mental health, even foster care, anywhere where there was a kind of a specialized support that we could provide. We started engaging on that level. We also put a focus on how to be, or for our funders, how to be a good partner with our funders, and what are their needs, what are their goals, and started engaging with our funders on a certain level.
Yeah. So let's just hover right there for a second. I think the other really big thing that I picked up when I first started that just shaped me was the first one was we just have to help people live in the community. That's what our job is, just to help folks live in the community. And then the second part was we should find a gap. Where is something not working? Where is an unmet need? And we should flow to that gap. We should provide something there. And what you're describing, Rob, was a little bit later in our development when there were gaps in services that the systems, that our funders, the county administrators would notice, and they would say, we're not sure what to do about that. And then we became a partner to say, well, we're not sure either, but we'll try something, and can we see if that will work? And so the part of our growth as an organization happened pretty organically, and it came out of that the commitment to seeing a gap and then saying it's a gap for a reason, because what people are trying evidently isn't working, and we're going to do something different or innovative to be in that gap space. And after a while, because we had good relationships with a lot of our funders, then we were asked to weigh in or asked to try something, and that's a lot. There was a lot of growth that happened out of that.
The system was very segregated at the time. The funding streams are very segregated. So I remember we would get these people that kind of crossed over multiple systems, and a lot of times, at the time it was a county system, and the county departments would be like kind of, there'd be tension because who's going to pay,
Yeah. Is children and youth going to pay, or is the mental health system going to pay? Right.
Yeah, and we didn't focus on that, and I'm like, just work it out. Like we're just going to do whatever we can do for this person, and then you can kind of sort it out, based on that. The funding works a little differently now, but I remember a lot of those conversations, and I think we approached it pretty well, in the sense that we weren't trying to squeeze every cent out of the system. We weren't really focused on billable hours. We made an investment in spending time with committees on the county level. We engaged families without the idea of we're going to get paid for every hour. We started engaging families, started figuring out what are your needs, and we did that through the guise of life planning, kind of helping people with the idea that if you do any little bit of planning as a family now, your family member with disabilities or whatever is going to be in better shape down the road. And so the things that we expected to come out of that really wasn't, more planning, which people aren't interested in, but things came out like what we really needed. We need some respite care. We need, these other things. And if we had focused on, every hour, accounting for every hour, we would have never taken some of those steps and moved forward in that way.
Yeah. Mike, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think it's nice to hear about who we were and to see that we still are that. Like, that's what's striking to me is we lead now through mission of the work. And sometimes you are in rooms where people are, it's kind of the Spider-Man meme. Everybody's pointing at each other for who's going to pay for this thing. But we know that there's a gap, that it needs to be filled, and we know that we're specifically equipped to fill it, especially with some uncertainty in funding coming up in 2027. I think we have to find creative ways to demonstrate what we do well and that it is a valuable service to the community. And I think we're particularly equipped to do that. I also think it strikes me, like, as you guys are talking about that, the early processes of getting people from these institutions into homes in the communities, and all the barriers to that. I'm curious, and I never know what our, who our listeners are, what walks of life they're coming from, but I wonder how much people in the communities were aware of the amount of work and advocacy that went into just getting people physically there and then equipped. Because if you're not super proximate to it, I think people wouldn't really understand what goes into that. But I also had a question kind of for both of you guys, is what, not just on the municipality level and some of those hoops to jump through, but what were the efforts like when you did finally have presence in the community? What was necessary? What was that necessary work with the other folks there that encouraged them to embrace our people? Like, what did that look like?
That was really a mixed bag, There were some people that were pretty cool. They're like, "Oh, okay, that's good. We're okay." And there were other people who were like, "I don't want that near me. I don't want those people to be our neighbors." And so, on a basic level, it was really how do you be a good neighbor, and how do you include the people that are living in the home, the people we're serving, as neighbors. And so we would make cookies for hand them out in the neighborhood. There was one place that I worked for a while, and the neighborhood was really bothered by us, or the idea of us. It wasn't anything that happened. It was just, we don't want these people to live there. And one of the staff knew some folks that lived in that street, and one of them had a daughter who had Down syndrome. She was young. She was like 4 or 5 years old. And I remember him saying to some of the neighbors, "You all know her, and you believe that she belongs in this community. She belongs in this neighborhood, and you're okay with that. These guys are older, but they belong in this neighborhood too." And so there was just a lot of relational work that went on. That same house, the way it was structured, it was in a 5. We were the end of like a 5-point intersection. So we stuck out like a sore thumb. Anything we did in the yard, everybody saw. And so we just felt like we were under a microscope. But it had on both sides of the house, there was a long stretch of sidewalk. And so when it would snow, I would go out first thing with one of the guys, and he was the one guy that was most likely to shovel maybe 3 shovelfuls, and then he would stop and stand there, but he would come out, and the two of us would shovel our whole walkway right away. But then I would go down the backside, so the houses behind us all had a back sidewalk that they had to shovel, but I would shovel the entire way down the block, and then before we would do our own driveway. So then Tom and I, the guy, we would be in our driveway shoveling and cleaning off the cars, and the neighbors would start walking by our house to go to the back side, and then they would see that I had already shoveled it. And then they would come back and say, well, thanks for doing that. And I would make Tom say, "You're welcome." He wouldn't say it real clearly, and usually I did most of the shoveling, but I wanted him to be the neighbor that was helping the rest of the neighborhood out. So there was a lot of work that just went into how do we live well as neighbors, knowing that we are sort of in a fishbowl.
And how do you make contributions? Like what can we do to make the neighborhood better or whatever? But I know engaging people, answering questions, because there would be a lot of questions. And once those questions were answered, they seemed to warm up, and almost the majority of the stories they were a little standoffish or whatever. But then once they got to know everybody, and they were big advocates and supporters of the people living near them and whatever. So there's a lot of good that had come out of that. But that's kind of the paving the way piece. It's like helping people to understand this is what this this is what we're doing, and the people that live here, they have certain challenges. This is what they are, and this is how it might impact you or not impact you, and that helped for them to kind of understand.
I think another example of how this grew and changed, but it was sort of evolving, was after the group homes, we started doing family living, or life sharing, is what we called it, where people would live in somebody's own home. So it was one person who would live with a family or a couple or a person, shared living. So it was more personalized, and it was more of a matching with the host family and the person that was living with them. And I remember at the time, what was happening on the ground was we were realizing that there were people who were happy to have moved out of an institution into a group home, but there was more for them further out into the community. And so they were still living in a little bit of a congregate setting. They had housemates that also had a disability, and we became more, our evolution was, we became more able to say, what does this person really want in their life, and how do we connect them relationally to some folks in the community that could help them get there to sort of the next step. So for me, that period of time was really an example where our mindset was shifting a little bit. Our commitment was still to the person. It was that initial commitment wasn't different, but what we were seeing was that there were other avenues opening up that would let people have even more of an opportunity to live their fullest life out in the community with people who really understood them well and cared about them and were going to do the best for them.
When somebody lives with a family, they're kind of accepted into that family circle of friends and extended family and the community in a different way than in like a group home type of situation. And so it develops these rich relationships and activities and social opportunities that seem like they come a little easier in the context of a family setting. And so I believed in life sharing as a model which went into foster care and other family models, because I felt like it was a great place, especially for kids. Really believe it in it for kids, but also for adults as well. Being part of a family and being, um, that didn't mean, it didn't mean any less for their natural family or whatever. It was an integration of those families together, and um, we really believed in those models.
Mike, you were also saying, you asked the question, like what was it on a neighborhood level? What did we have to do? And one of the things that we were committed to as an organization in those early days with the group homes is we had live-in house parents, which was different from what a lot of the other organizations were doing, where they would have a supervisor of a group home and then staff. But we had house parents because we said we want this to be close as we can get it to what a family would be like. And it's an odd family, a unique kind of family, but we're living like a family lives in the community. And so, we had house parents who were raising their family, who had young kids, just living in the group home alongside of folks with disabilities. So that was a decision that we made early on to show. I mean, it was a strong way to provide the service, but it also helped us show in front of the neighborhood, these people are okay. In fact, we live here with them because it really is okay, and we're modeling for you the fact that it's okay.
And we're recognizing that at the smallest level of community is we're going to start it with our own. We're going to put it in our own home, and this is our community, and then we'll branch out from there. And then we meet our neighbors, we meet our employers, we meet our coworkers, and then we build out on that. But we're recognizing we don't want anyone to be in isolation. People are better around others and require the support of each other. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about, and I'm sure you in those years, and I know for a lot of places that I've been in my career, I've probably gained more than I have given because of those opportunities. And it's something that when we talk about this stuff, I would like that, we just happen to stumble upon these things through our career opportunities. That this is the mission that we followed, and then we have opportunities through a career of many years where we've been able to have experiences with people that have enriched our lives. And I think about the opportunities that other people connected to different lines of employment don't have, where we get to see real tangible progress and success for people. We get to see them be successful in their vision and what that means to them. And I want other people not directly connected to the work to have the capacity to see that and be enriched by what that can do for you, because I know how much it's done for me. And I think so, those experiences for me on a career level are the most successful I've been and the most happy I've been in those times when it might have even looked externally to the rest of the community when I was out there like this was a rough day. And those were some of the best, because we were helping people take a step that might be uncomfortable but got them where they wanted to go. So it takes people if you're bringing folks in your home with your family and with each other, it is very personal work. You have to really bring your authentic self. But you can do it as a neighbor as well. You can do it as a coworker, as a friend. It's just got to find some creative ways to make that happen as an organization.
Yeah, that's a really good segue to another question that I wanted to put out to us, which is just exactly that. What's the impact? What personal impact, or what's the impact on us when we do this kind of work out of a value system that says we believe that we're human beings and we should be helping other human beings live a life that's important to them. And so I just want to sort of throw that out, and you've led us into that really well, Mike. What's the impact that it has on us when we're involved in this kind of work?
Well, I can speak for myself, is that you develop these relationships with people, you engage with them. I was saying when I was hired, I didn't necessarily have a passion for the work. The passion came after you work for a while, you meet people, you get invested in the challenges that they have and the things that they're doing in their life. You develop personal relationships with people, and they start to get a place in your heart. And you go to work when you do this for a living. You go to work feeling like what I'm doing has value, and it has meaning in life.
I think of some of the really powerful moments that I was taught something, and a lot of things that I've learned in life as life lessons, as important life lessons. I've learned from somebody that I've been in a relationship with. Like it's a helping relationship, but that's a reciprocal thing. And some of the really important lessons that I've learned came from the times that I've been supporting somebody as I've watched them struggle. I don't remember if I said this in an earlier podcast, but when I first started, I was working in Hamilton Street, and Terry was my supervisor. But the guys that were living there were people that I had known at a church. The group home would come on a Sunday to the church that I was attending as a teenager, and I had no idea. Fast forward a couple years, that at age 20, I would be working with them. And if you had told me that, I would have said, that's kind of crazy. I'm not going to do that. But I answered this ad. I didn't know what I was doing when I answered the ad, except it looked like a good opportunity. And I was trained for 2 weeks, and then they said, here's the address, go work your first shift. And when I knocked on the door, John opened it. And John was a guy that I had known. And John had hung out with us, as teenagers at church, and we didn't know what to do with John. He was a little bit different. He laughed at the wrong jokes, or he didn't laugh at the right times, or he made us feel self-conscious, and we weren't sure exactly what to do about that. And this first day on my job, I'm like, what did I get myself into? Now I'm going to have to be out with John. I'm going to have to figure this out. And it was like the second shift that we were working, and John described that he had been a breech birth. John and I were the same age. We were born in neighboring hospitals in different towns. And I was also a breech birth, but I was delivered by cesarean section, and I was fine. John's birth, his mom was struggling for like 36 hours or something, and he came out backwards, and the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, and he knew that. And he said, the cord was wrapped around my neck, and that the doctor said I didn't have oxygen for 2 minutes too long. And he said, that's why I'm slow. And in that moment, I realized that I was the one who just needed to change. Somehow John knew this about himself, and he knew that I could drive and he couldn't. That, I had a girlfriend and he didn't. He had to go to a special school. That all of those things were just because of two minutes of oxygen. And I just had to learn how to be a friend to the guy. I just had to learn how to be, a good guy to this person. And I could not believe that he wasn't bitter. And he struggled a lot. But he taught me right from the second shift I was in that to see that people are really strong and resilient and working hard at a hard life, and that my job is just to come alongside of them. And so those lessons like that have shaped me, not only in my career, but who I try to be as a human being. And I learned them here. So it's been very powerful.
I always think of those things, like when you talked about the 2 weeks of training and then you're on your way. I think the guys I worked with, and I had a handful that I worked with for years I spent with them. They were my trainers, like not just for work, but for life. Like they were my trainers. I had to show up ready to learn every day, curiously trying to figure out and understand. And sometimes I'd work with people who would tell me or show me exactly what they were trying to do or needed to do. And other times I had to figure it out because it wasn't so easy to communicate the needs. But the thing that I was always trying to do was get to where are you trying to go? What do you want to do? How can I like enrich your life and help you and like find people that will enrich your life? And I think those times where I'm so thankful that even in those times that there may have been some struggle and had to help people through some real challenging things, to feel better equipped to do that every day, every week, every month for that person. And then sometimes you're a couple years down the line and you're like, oh, I'm the number one person here. Like there's a problem that happens. I'm the number one problem solver, but he's also got like 7 other numbers because we help build this thing around him. But I find like that's a difficult element of the work, is to say like, there's a way you have to show up. There's a way, and we're all not ready to show up that way every day. Like that's also part of the work, is to get yourself in a mindset that I'm going to show up positively with enthusiasm and I'm going to be passionate about doing it, because we're not always having our best days ourselves, but it's a requirement of the work.
Yeah. As I got a little bit older in my career, I started doing trainings around help. Like, what does it mean to be helpful? What is the helping relationship like? Because these are things that oftentimes don't get talked about in our schools, in our colleges. And one of the things they say about help is if you're doing it right, it should impact you. We don't want you burned out, but it should be impacting you in some way. And so when we do the helping relationship right, it does include some. It should make a lasting impression on us, and I think we're just describing sort of the blessing that comes with being able to work in this way. Many years later, I bumped into the saying by Brian Stevenson that says proximity changes the narrative, and so I think the one of the things that I'm most grateful for in my time at Access is just being able to be proximate to the people. Not only the people we're serving, but then the people who are also helpers in doing the good work that many of our staff and associates are doing. So this has been a really good conversation, guys. And I think as we move forward through this series, we're going to talk to other people and their stories about how they're in their part of the world at Access. They have been helping people to live full lives in the community, and how all of us are sort of connected to this an initial mission of just helping people live well, the lives that are important to them, in relationship with other people in the community, and how we are always trying to find a gap, a space where that could be done better, and standing in that. So thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
All right, good luck in Florida, Rob. Rob's flying out to Florida, so go find some warmer weather.
All righty. Take care, guys. Thanks.
All right, see you, Rob.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope that you enjoyed hearing from people who are strengthening our communities every day. Search for and follow us on your preferred streaming platform to hear future episodes.